Quad 6.6. We could have had it all, but we wanted to go faster. We wanted to go bigger. We wanted to go, I don't know what, and instead of taking this to where it could have gone, we went out on this big this big tangent, this big divergence with 3-inch props, 3S, and something that is just no longer this at all. And I say we could have it all because it's like the pieces are finally starting to come together to where this is a really, really incredibly fun quad to fly, whether you build it up as a 1S. So this one, particular one, I built it up with the FPVcycle board, or this one I built it up as a 2S with that GemQ board, so that's 16 by 16. And I really like the 2.5-inch prop size. I'm actually going to go down and even try the 2-inch because although yeah, absolutely, it does not punch out as far. You can't throw it as far. It does not do those things, but it makes my tiny yard more fun. It makes my space more fun because with this size, this quad just has the right balance of having enough performance to be able to get it inverted, do your split S, your power loops, and catch at the bottom. On 1S, if you're not careful, occasionally it will sneak up on you. But it's incredibly fun. The problem is now, though, look at the motors I'm running. These are those old Paradrone Hyperlight 12,000 something kV motors. These motors are gone. They're just not there anymore. All the 1S motors have gone bigger into that 1202.5 size and 1303 size and 3-inch prop stuff, and this we just don't have anymore, except for some of you guys like myself, girls hopefully out there too, who have hoarded some of these motors and still have them. But this is finally kind of where it should be. Granted, I still want to see this prop in a biblade, with a little bit more pitch. I think that would really be pretty amazing, but we'll see if GemFan ever gets around to that. Or if you do want just a little bit more power, stepping up to the 2S. So the way this build turned out, and I'm going to wait and show you, pretending like you can actually get these motors, even though you can't. So you can't even build it up as is. But so this one, the way I built it up, make sure it's on here. Yeah, 33.8 grams, 34 grams, and so if you add a battery, depending which battery you add, that's going to bring it up to 47.5, or this will bring it up to just about 49 grams all up weight. Yeah, 49.5, so 50 grams, under 50 grams all up weight. And it flies amazing. No, it doesn't have a crazy punch out, but it flies amazing. It really does. And part of the reason that we're finally here is because we have hopefully this Tune RC board is reliable and holds up. But boards aside, I think if you found a decent Crazy Bee board, it'd probably survive. But the other things we have is really Ghost and Express LRS. That link latency, bringing it down, really makes these builds come alive, because these small tight builds, you fly them different. You fly them more really tight proximity, and when the latency is low enough to where you can fly it on reaction, meaning you see something, you react to it, and so you can like go into blind corners and things like that, and the latency is there to where you can actually pull it off. This really comes alive and becomes so much more fun to fly. And part of the key is having these tiny little receivers with excellent latency, and whether it's Ghost or Express LRS, we're finally there. We're also getting a 1S board, all-in-one from Happy Model with Express LRS integrated. And so these builds are just going to be fantastic. I'm really glad to see, I'll put the link down in there, that Nick Burns did a video on the TKS frame. So that's Tarkus Kevin. So Kevin's been kind of pushing this niche a little bit. He goes a little bit smaller than me. He's more whoop size, 2-inch prop size, and a little bit even smaller than this. But he's been pushing that, and I think it sounds like Nick has kind of collaborated on helping him, kind of get that frame where it needed to be. and Nick did a 2S version. He loves it, so it's great to see that. Hopefully that brings more interest and we start getting some of these motors back maybe. But yeah, you know, this is finally where we needed it before. I mean, it was just in development. It just never got to where it was before, and especially I think if we got this in a bi-blade, you know, these would be really, really incredible. But we'll see what happens. See if anybody makes a motor. And this motor, you know, it's listed as an 1103, but realistically speaking, it's probably 1102.5, realistically speaking. And that's about where it needs to be. You know, with this weight on tri-blades, this motor's protected well enough to where even though it's a really light, really fragile motor, it holds up pretty well. But yeah, so getting to the board. This Tune RC board, you can hardly see it in here because the way I have it packaged in, but it's kind of interesting. With what you can see here is that with these two very small components, both, so this is the Nameless RC VTX in there and the Ghost Zepto? Zepto? I think Zepto receiver, the smaller one. You can get them both in end to end across the diagonal of the board, so that makes it really nice, clean and tight. The board builds up, I think, reasonably easy. The one complaint I have, where I can't even really show it to you very well, but the one complaint I have is the rows of wires. The VTX is the set of holes that's closest to the plug, and the camera is a little bit more central. And what that means is that you have to kind of like snake the camera wires out from under the VTX. It's not a big deal, but it's a little bit annoying because I think in general, if I'm going to replace something, it's going to be the camera before the VTX. And so if I want to be able to kind of access something without messing with something else, I'd rather be able to access the camera wires rather than the VTX wires. It's maybe a little bit of a moot point the way I've mounted this all up because the VTX is covering both sets of holes. Anyways, but it's a reasonable board to build on. Once you get the receiver and your VTX soldered up, the wiring for the motors is great. They got really nice big solder pads to solder the motor wires, so that's fantastic. So, you know, changing out motors and things like that, even when I have kind of this like, you know, funny rotated build where I'm kind of tucked under there and stuff, it's still easy to get those wires in. So that's really nice. XT30 is too much connector for these builds, but it's better. I think overall at the end of the day it's probably better than the PH2. Hopefully my dog stops barking there. I think the BT2 connector would be better, but you can't get any batteries with BT2, or like you'd have to replace everything to BT2, and it's just, I'm not about to do that. So XT30 it is. And I think that's another place where you know, we could have kind of had it all, but we went for too big and too fast, and so now we never got the connector that we needed for these size builds. So as far as, you know, I've put, how many packs? I've probably put, I think, going on like 10 packs through this, and a bunch of crashes and things like that. The board so far seems fine. In terms of the tune, it was pretty easy. I just took the tune that was on there, cranked up my feed forward to 200. I left the P at around 180, left the D, or no, P I think 120-ish, something like that, and then D's at 80. I think D at 80 is pretty good for these little 1S. And then I cranked up my I a little bit to get a little bit more stability. I think I went up to maybe 75 or something like that. And then I turned down the filters down to 1.8. I am running, on this particular one, I flashed Blue Jay on it with the 48 kilohertz, and I am doing RPM filtering, and on Betaflight, the latest 0.3. It's not official release yet, but that's working well. Oh, one of those nice things about Betaflight was the motor remapping. So I rotate the board, so obviously, of course, my dog's going to come over here and drink. I had to do the motor remapping in Betaflight now. That's super easy. It, like, literally, it's got this little wizard thing, and it spins a motor, and it says, okay, click which motor it is, and you just go through all four of them, and then boom, you're remapped. And then you can also reverse your motors too, straight from Betaflight, so you don't have to go hook it back up to your ESC firmware flasher thing. And you don't have to do it in there. You can just do it from Betaflight, which is really kind of nice. So I think, you know, hopefully the board survives. It seems good. The one issue I've off the bat that I've had on this, and I really don't know if it's the board, it could just be the VTX, but smart audio is not working. I can't change the channel on the VTX through smart audio. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. These are nameless RC VTXs. I've never had that happen before, but these are super cheap VTXs, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is a one-off issue with the VTX. Could be also maybe a soldering issue on my part too. It's possible, but I didn't feel like tearing it down to go sort that out. The only other funny part I see is like when this quad is just sitting here, the VTX flashes, and I was worried that I had a bad thing because the screen was like kind of flashing. But then as soon as you arm, the flashing goes away. So that was pretty good. So I guess review the board is like, yeah, it's good if you want to be doing a ton of soldering, but I kind of got to the end of this build, built it up, did all that soldering, and I kind of got to the end of it and I was like, holy cow, I did all that soldering for 1S. Like, if I'm doing all that work, why don't I just do this? Why don't I just go 2S? Like, if I'm doing all that work to solder up a VTX, separate receiver, camera, why don't I just go, like, I can do a 2S. Now, maybe there are some reasons that you want to do 1S versus 2S. Because of the motors, I think it's mostly in the motors. These are super light motors, so I think I'm saving about close to a gram a motor, but this quad is about 5 grams heavier dry weight, and obviously the battery is going to be a little bit heavier too, so this is definitely a little bit lighter build. But once you hop up to 2S, you really do, so you're going to give up a little bit of, you know, kind of that really low speed tight handling, but you gain quite a bit of punch. So I don't know, and to me this like build is kind of like cleaner because it's sort of laid out in a nicer fashion for, I'm not doing all the wonky stuff I'm doing over here. Now obviously if you like the open prop whoop thing, you know, toothpick style with the whoop canopy on top, you know, then my complaint here is a moot point. But it's the last kind of thing where I'm like, you know, we could have had it all, like way back when I was building on the Fusion, the F3 Fusion boards. Those were laid out like this. They were 16 by 16. You had your motor pads on the corners, and you can build it. You could build it up like a normal quad. You didn't have to have the silly little whoop canopies up top. And I really don't like them up top. I like the camera in front, less props in view, less arms in view and stuff. And I think it gives you a little better perspective. Plus the camera is tucked down a little bit, and I'm not liable to smack it on stuff. And I feel it has like a little bit less drag and handles a little bit better. So DVR, I was trying to get a little DVR earlier today, and it's just crazy windy. So anytime I went up high, it got me some problems. But so the DVR I have is just a short little clip, but I kind of wanted to show you the flying with this because I'm doing kind of like my little bush slalom stuff, and I just wanted to show you that little clip because I think it illustrates how with this build, how I can kind of get in so deep into the turns, into that proximity, and I'm able to fly this deeper than I ever have, and I think you'll kind of see that come across. Yet it'll still punch out enough. I mean, I can't fully throw it over the house, but I can get up over the little trees I have in the backyard. I can do the little split S's over the fence, no problem. Can do power loops and everything else. But it does. I mean, it's just from a bigger quad, it's gonna give things up. But anyways, I don't know. It's kind of like this is like the happiest, saddest, like, you know, video ever, because it's like we're finally here, and by the time we got here everything's gone, and it just kind of makes me sad. Anyways, on that overly dramatic note, leave you with a little DVR. Until next time, cheers.
The sky